Hello, world. My name is Daniel Marnie Elkins, and this is Talk About It, recorded live at the Cause Theater at the Bellevue Community Center. We're here to talk about the opioid epidemic and share opinions and thoughts with people who have been on the front lines with lived experience, whether from the prevention side or the recovery side. And it's my honor and privilege today to have an amazing and inspirational guest, Gaime Prado. Why don't you introduce yourself to the people?
My name is Gaime Prado. I just want to make a disclaimer. Anything that I say today is my opinion. It has no fellowship, not my employment or employer, but it's all my opinion.
So, just speaking from the heart, your perspective on things. So, uh, when it comes to your experience with the opioid epidemic, now you are currently working as a person in a recovery treatment center, yes?
Mhm.
So you are on the professional side of it, but where did your journey begin?
My journey began when I was a teenager, uh, running around. Just I actually went right to heroin. I didn't. There wasn't no. It wasn't the pills weren't. It was early '90s. Uh, but it it all started with partying, with drinking
Mhm,
alcohol and smoking weed.
mhm.
But I progressed very fast with the crowd that I was running with. My grandma used to always say, "Show me your friends, and I tell you who you are."
Mm,
And it definitely is the truth,
mhm.
you know. Uh,
So you have lived experience.
yes.
Um, the process and path that led you uh, to becoming addicted to
Mhm.
heroin was a slippery slope. It sounds like so. It started with the drinking and then smoking and then so during your experience. At what point in time did you realize that you were perhaps beginning to lose control?
Very, very quickly.
Okay.
Uh, you know, it, I wanted it to be just a party thing on the weekends, and then next thing you know, it's a Tuesday. Next thing you know, it's a Thursday, and the next thing you know, it's every day, every day.
Mhm.
And then when I didn't have it and felt the effects of the withdrawal, yeah, I already knew, and the obsession that was going on in my mind, and always obsessing over it. When I didn't have it, when I did have it, didn't matter if I was using it at the time. Like I was always thinking about how I was going to get my next one, how I was going to get money to get my next one. So it was uh, nonstop, So I already knew, I knew I had a problem with alcohol and all them things before, because my friends only wanted to you know get busy on the weekends, and I was like, I want to do it all the time,
Mhm.
because I like the effect that it gave me and courage, and yeah, so I knew it. I knew it right away. Some people don't. Some, or a lot of people do though,
Mhm.
because once it has a script in you, I mean, it's it's evident.
Yeah. So, from that point in which you had lost control, um, how did your pathway to recovery begin?
A lot of pain,
Mm,
a lot of pain, and you know, until I was, reached my bottom, which I've been at many different types of bottoms.
mm,
There's, losing material stuff, emotional bottoms. And they always say that there's a trap door on every bottom. So, right when you think you're at the bottom, you can go farther.
mm,
And they always tell you, stop digging. And it took me a long time before I could stop digging. It
yeah.
was a lot of pain. A lot of pain came with that, prison, a lot of repercussions that came with my actions that, when I was getting high and what I would do to get high. And living in North Philly in the early '90s through a blizzard, uh, you know, and you would think that that'd be enough to to say, "Oh, I'm done with this," but that's when you have a disease, it plays on your mind, it lies to you in your own voice, it tells you you don't have a disease. It's hard to, you know,
You said a very powerful phrase right there, that it lies to you in your own voice.
yeah, yeah, and I mean, they, I think it was Albert Einstein that said it. You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it,
Mhm.
and and it took me a long time to get out of my own way and start listening to people because that same voice would tell me that I knew better,
Mm.
that I knew, what I needed to do, and until I got out of my own way and would listen, it wasn't, you know, I didn't get to the point where I could even reach recovery.
Mm.
And there was, times where I'd have some clean time, and then when I would go back, it would just pick right where I left off, and it only got worse every time. It got worse.
Mm. And so, for people who have not lived it, the understanding the process of recovery
Right.
is something that I think it's useful to shed light on. So for you, the process of recovery, it's not like you are going through this, you then decide that you are going to get clean, you're clean, and now everything's okay.
Yeah, it's definitely not like that. The four-letter word everybody hates, time.
Mm.
It takes time, and sitting through a lot of stuff that emotions sitting on your hands and not doing nothing. Uh, Feels like you're not progressing a lot of the times, and you're usually the last one to see it.
Mm.
Like I see it in other people, but I won't see it in myself. But a lot of sitting through a lot of feelings, and so so used to masking them feelings with a substance.
Mm.
Now that I don't have a substance, like I can get a job, I could get a girl, I could all them things, but that's not what's gonna make me all right. You know, working on what's going on inside is what, and sitting through a lot of that emotional stuff. Facing a lot of facts and being honest and talking about it. Like me being molested as a child, like I never wanted to tell nobody that. But I saw the patterns from that point to now. Why, you know, I didn't like authority. I
Mm.
didn't, there was a lot of things that were going on with me that I didn't realize then
Mhm.
that I could see now by
Yeah.
doing the work, the actual work, and even when it don't feel good, just still, stay in the position
Mhm.
and doing what I got to do. And they used to say a term that I used to want to choke them when they said it to me. They say, "This too shall pass," and I was like,
Mm.
"Oh,
Yeah.
but I want it to pass now. I'm an addict. I want what I want when I want it. I want it now."
Mm.
And it's just that's not the way it goes.
Mm. So I had a dear friend to me say to me once, anyone can get addicted,
Mm-hmm.
anyone can recover.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that from your experiences that you can then be helping others because you have walked both paths? Is that what has called you into your current profession?
Of course. I mean, there's like and I don't say this to knock anybody, especially the ones that are helping and putting forth the effort to help. Uh, but we're the only ones that can reach us because when it's authentic, and when somebody's been through something too, because just the verbiage, and we pick up on that. And I mean, it says it in a good book that close to one of the most prominent doctors. He was like, "Listen, I've been on the front lines for years, but nobody can help, these people, but the ones that have got to the other side and like take my hand and follow me because there isn't a way out. Because I never thought it was possible. I would look at people and be like, man, they're lying. There's no way that these people are. Because if they had the obsession that I had in my head, and then when you see people that had that obsession in their head, just like I had, recover, and you're like, in recovery, you're like, wow, like maybe I can do this. It gives you just a little bit of hope.
Mm.
So being able to, share my experience and no holds barred, being honest. Like I never, like I said about the molestation. When I first talked about that in front of a group, you would have it would blow your mind how many people came up to me afterward. That happened to me too. I never told nobody, and I was just like, and it opens up doors, to help other people, see that there is a way, because there is a way, and because there's no reason why I should be sitting here right now. I've gotten shot in my chest. I've OD'd. I've been in some shady situations, to say the least. And I believe that the reason why I'm here is to help others see that there's another way, and hopefully it won't take them as long as it took me to see it.
So, if you had just one message to share with the people who have not yet started walking down that path but might be on the edges of it, what would you say to a group that may be beginning the same path that you started to walk, where they're drinking and they're starting to smoke and beginning to experiment with pills? And if you could just, sit them down and tell them what one thing, what would it be?
Hmm. Ah, tread lightly. uh, because I know no one could tell me anything.
Mm.
Like I thought I knew everything, and I had to do this with my own children. I got to let them get their bumps and bruises, which is the hardest thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
To sit there and watch when you know what could be coming around that corner.
Mm.
So I just share my experiences and don't point the finger. I just say, look, this is what happened to me when I did that. This is what happened to me when, and with my own children, they've seen that and they witnessed it, so they know. And when I'm open with them and honest with them about it, it helps. But the one thing I could say to that's a hard question.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't know, because I'd like to be able to just sit there and talk with them and find out who they are and what makes them tick. And it's not always about preaching or everybody's not the same. Everything ain't for everybody. So you just got to figure out, like, if it's your child, if it's somebody you're mentoring, learn them.
Yeah. And I think you answered a very hard question extremely well. Because
I appreciate it, because I felt like I did terrible.
no. Because within your answer, you identified that you have to talk to them and find out who they are,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And then sharing your story of the experience of what you had in a non-judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
non-preachy way, but identifying
Yeah.
with them.
It opened the door with my own children to be able for them to be able to tell me stuff, like sometimes stuff that I don't want to hear about. You know what I mean? Especially with a younger female, talking about birth control, talking about stuff that I would have never talked to my mom or dad about. Like, like being able to, so being able to be open and speak with them and let them share themselves with you, like, it opens many other doors later on. And that's what that time I'm talking about. It takes time to build rapport.
And that hits on a central theme of why we're doing these podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
When you're talking about the addiction and the opioid epidemic, there's a lot of stigma surrounding that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of feelings of shame,
Mm-hmm.
feelings that somehow that if someone has become addicted, that they are not a good person,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so then we don't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's important to understand that no matter how painful that these conversations can get, we have to talk.
See, I think that this last time that I got clean, the one thing that was different, I was completely honest. People were asking me, "How you doing?" I'm doing terrible, and and wasn't ashamed to ask for help. And that's the hardest part, is to ask for help, because the embarrassment, because the shame, the guilt. We're not bad people. We just sometimes do bad things to, while we're ripping and running.
Yeah.
I've met so many addicts and alcoholics with the greatest hearts.
Mhm.
The greatest people, most talented people I know. And, that shame and guilt, that's why the process of doing some work, self work, uh, is definitely, definitely needed, because there's a lot of stuff that I figured out along the way that I was like, wow, like, with fear, resentments, all types of things that were poisoning me, and didn't even realize it was happening until I really took a honest look at it and then shared it with somebody else. There goes that share thing again.
Mm. Yeah. The stripping back the layers and getting to the truth,
Mm-hmm.
no matter how hard that might be. Um, it sounds like for you, that was the essential step.
See, for many years, I was so worried about what others thought,
Mm.
from everything, even in my own family. Like, I was the youngest of four, so I always looked up to three older brothers. So I wanted to live up to their reputations and make them proud, or in my head, what I thought. And they were like, "Hey, you could have been whatever. We would have still loved you."
Mm.
But, and I was always worried about how people thought. And that's where that shame and guilt and that embarrassment comes. We're worried about how people are going to look at us, when all we really should be worried about is saving our own life.
And saving the lives of our family, because sometimes it's not just that individual who's going through the shame, it's the family of. And I don't want to talk to a doctor, because they might know that something is wrong in my family and perceive that we have somehow been bad parents, because then
Hmm.
this has occurred, and then it snowballs.
Yeah, we definitely handcuff our loved ones to misery, and that's like, that that might be sometimes even harder to have to watch someone, you know, deconstruct and fall apart in front of you, and you can't do nothing about it.
Mm.
There's nothing you can do to say. There's none of, like, how much you love them. None of that matters.
Mm.
And so, from my parents, they prayed and prayed and prayed for
Mm.
pictures, candles, uh, for years, and that's probably the best living amends that I can give them. Not just saying sorry, by just walking the walk and living
Mm.
it and showing up and being a good father. I mean, yeah, father to my children, a son to them, a brother to my brothers, and to rest their minds, because there was many sleepless nights where my mom was expecting the call.
Mhm.
And it's sad when a loved one gets locked up and you're like, thank God, in such a dismal, you know, dismal place.
Because at least it takes you off the street.
Yeah,
They know where you're going to be
right.
that night.
And especially like these days with way things are with fentanyl, and people aren't getting second chances, man. It's taking people out left and right. I've lost, so many, so many, friends, and people I knew. I mean, I constantly see it, and
So knowing that, and knowing that the people who are then, you know, playing Russian roulette
Hmm.
with what they're ingesting and taking their bodies. Um, how do uh, we as a society
Hmm.
uh, help provide an environment where recovery can come from within? Because what I'm hearing you say is that the recovery process, it needs to be an internal process.
Yeah.
Well, is there a way that we as a society can help make that process, the chance of it starting more likely? Like if I was someone who had a friend who is going through this and struggling this, a family member, a loved one, where would I reach out to in this area?
So, I mean, the thing that probably has for many years has worked the most has been fellowships, but everything ain't for everybody.
Hmm.
I try not to judge who's doing what. Whatever gets you to the other side, do it.
Hmm.
But I think we need to build more resources around getting people to the point where they can work on the inner stuff and feeling comfortable enough too, because it's not easy to you know let all that stuff open that scab up, especially if you don't have something to address that wound and uh, just more resources, because I mean, there's a lot of programs going on right now, but definitely could be more. There definitely could be more avenues. Like what personally, what I'm doing is trying to put together some video work, uh, given my experience of what it's like in early recovery and things that you may go through, things that you may think. Because I came in thinking I was unique. Nobody felt like me. Nobody understands this, that, and the other. I thought I was unique until I realized that I wasn't unique. And a lot of the things that were going through my mind were going through a lot of people's minds. And like learning how to recognize that the voices that are going on are lying to you.
Hmm.
And so that's those, these are projects that we're trying to work on to build
Mhm.
these resources for uh, individuals that are scared, man, because it's definitely it is not an easy thing, man. I think some of the most strongest people in the world are those who come back from this, and a lot of people need they might not believe in themselves that they can do it, but we're some of the strongest people on this earth. I'll tell you that
Mhm.
because I've seen some people overcome a lot of stuff, a lot of obstacles that a lot of other people may not, yeah.
Yeah.
And so just building resources.
So the resource you're talking about is putting together a series of videos from your personal lived experience
Hmm.
perspective that
Yeah.
can be shared with other people to give them hope. Do you have a name for this project?
Uh, right now, I mean, me and my partner, Plexoid, uh, we are putting it together. We actually came up with the name probably in like 2015, Hope Hustlers.
Okay.
Uh, you know, just trying to give people that hope that it is possible and you can do it. And I think the main component with the experience is you could say stuff like one day at a time. You could say all these cliche things, right?
Platitudes, yeah.
But how did you apply that?
Mm.
Tell me your experience, how you apply that
Mhm.
in your life, because you could say that all day. But what does that mean to you? And that's I'm trying to, me and my partner are doing it, and we're trying to bring other, people that are in recovery or recovering to give their experience too, so those don't feel like they're alone or they're like the only one that's ever felt like that.
So, would you be comfortable with us sharing your contact information so people can reach out and learn
Of
more about
course,
the project?
of course.
Excellent. Well, you heard it here first. A Hope Hustlers project coming soon. Please reach out and contact Jamie if this is something that you feel that could speak to you or you would like to be a part of,
Mhm.
because the conversation begins here. Let's talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.